Tonight, we are privileged to have the Maronite bishops of the United States here to talk about the Maronite Rite and its role in the whole Catholic Church here in the United States as well and elsewhere. So please stay with us. Thank you, and welcome. I'm Father Mitch Pacwa, and it's great to have all of you here. It's for EWTN Live, our chance to bring you guests from all over the world. And tonight we have guests that are pretty special. It's very much a privilege to have both of the bishops of the Maronite Church from the United States as our guests. They're here to help us understand the Maronite Rite, how it relates to the other rites of the Catholic Church. Our first guest will be Bishop Gregory Mansour of the Eparchy of St. Maron of Brooklyn. And second, along with him, is Bishop Robert Shaheen of the Eparchy of Our Lady Lebanon of Los Angeles. So please welcome these two fine bishops. Bishop Shaheen, welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I actually went in the order of the different eparchies here. When we talk about the Eastern churches, we talk about eparchies as distinct from a diocese in the Roman Rite. And the older eparchy is Brooklyn. But from that came the eparchy that you are the head of and that I'm part of, Our Lady of Lebanon. And we have two co-cathedrals. You have one in St. Louis and Los Angeles.
So Los Angeles, Our Lady of Mount Lebanon, and St. Louis, St. Raymond's.
St. Raymond's Cathedral. Mm-hmm. It's been a privilege to celebrate liturgy with both of you over the years. And to be part of that's one of the reasons I get to wear my gibbet tonight, right. Because I've got permission to be by ritual in the Maronite Rite. Now, first of all, there are a number of things going on and that will help us to understand the Maronite Rite. One of them is a 1500th anniversary. What is that anniversary?
It's the anniversary of the death of St. Maron, the father of the Maronite Church. St. Maron, of course, was a hermit, was a very prayerful man who gathered around him people who wanted to hear his message, hear his words. Actually, that community, that small group, became larger, became a community, a monastery, so to speak, and that is the origin of the Maronite Church as such as we have today. Yeah. And I take the church, the Maronite Church's name from an individual. The only Eastern church that's named after an individual, St. Maron, is the Maronite Church. Some people call it Marionite,
right?
Some
right.
Mennonites. So we get a little mixed up once in a while. But
it's not named after Our Lady. It's named after St. Maron.
St. Maron, M-A-R-O-N, right.
Now, one of the things that's distinctive about the Maronite Rite is its roots in the East. We have our own patriarch. Tell us a little bit about the patriarch and also the language issues that we also are privileged to be part of. Bishop Gregory?
The Maronite Church is a community transversing in time, made up of one patriarch and 45 bishops, and maybe 17, 18 dioceses throughout the world, 13 in Lebanon, and then the Holy Land in Egypt and Cyprus and Brazil and the United States and Mexico, Argentina, Australia. This community is made one through this, what's called a Synod of Bishops. The East governs its church as a synodal church, as a church of bishops, with the patriarch as a principle of unity, who is in union with the Holy Father. And that's what makes the 21 Eastern Catholic churches all tied with Peter in the person of the Pope.
And one of the things that is distinctive about the union with the Pope and the rest of the Catholic Church, that it's a distinctive element of the Maronites among the Eastern rites, that you never were separated. That there's been the continuity of union with the Church, the whole Church.
They were part of the Catholic Church since the beginning.
Yep.
Remember, Peter established the church in Antioch before going to Rome. The church in Antioch continued. The Maronites fall into the area of the Church of Antioch. And we've always been faithful to Peter because we're always taught where Peter is, there is a church. Mm-hmm. So we always remain faithful to the whole, even though there were many distances, thousands of miles away, no communication, the Church of Peter is what we've always been part of.
Even when some of the Crusaders came to Lebanon, they were surprised to hear the Maronites ask, how's the Pope?
That's right.
Some of them thought that we were schismatic.
Right.
And they were, some of them just couldn't understand that when they said, well, you have to convert. Convert to what? We've been Catholic all of from the very beginning. Right. The Church of Peter is our church. Peter is the head of our church. So
just communication got to be a little tough once the Seljuk Turks took over and sort of broke down the lines.
That always happens.
Mm-hmm. Another distinctive thing, because Antioch was itself a city composed of Greeks and Syriac, Aramaic speaking.
Right.
Correct.
We're with the Maronite writers with the Syriac community.
Yes, if you look at the Catholic Church, it's made up of 3 language groups that grew up, and the liturgy is a little bit different, but it's the same in all 3. You have the Latin, you have the Greek, and then you have the Syriac. And I tell someone who's a Latin Catholic or a Roman Catholic or a Western Catholic, if they don't understand the Greek Church or the Syriac Church, they're really missing something, because all of these churches are Catholic. Mm-hmm. And our church grew up with the Syriac, which is a dialect of Aramaic, and the same culture and language that Jesus spoke.
Yeah. And in fact, your point is one that's made at the Second Vatican Council in the decree on the Eastern churches, that, and I think paragraph 4, that it's important for all the churches to know about one another, because the distinctive qualities are kept, but they're also part of the whole. And would be like having a stew that where the salt and the pepper and the other spices didn't like each other. You need all these flavors.
That's true, the universality of the church. To understand the universality of the church, you have to understand the church takes in all these different traditions, cultures, liturgies, but there's still the one holy Catholic Church. Yeah. And we understand the church in a more beautiful sense. We understand it more fully when we understand all these rites are part of this, what you could say, crown of jewels that make up the church, or this garden with different flowers making up the church. Many ways of describing the church by using these rites, but it's the church, so universal church, universal Catholic Church.
And of course, hanging around Lebanese as much as I do, I immediately went for a food image, because the food is always so good in the Lebanese community. Matter of fact, I want my audience never to forget, if there is a Lebanese festival in your neighborhood or your town, don't miss it. The food's great. Now, one of the other things is that not only is this the 1500th anniversary of the death of 1600th anniversary of the death of Saint Maron, there's also 150th anniversary of the death of the Masabki brothers, the martyrdom of Who are the Masabki brothers?
The Masabki brothers were 3 businessmen in Damascus, very faithful. 2 were married and 1 was single, but they were silk merchants, and they had a great devotion to Mary and a great devotion to the church. And so in the eve of 1860, when the Pasha from Istanbul...
Pasha would be the governor.
Of the Ottoman Turks at the time. Decreed that certain of the Christian inhabitants of Damascus did not pay the tax or did not do what they were supposed to, and so he sent his henchmen in. And you had, interestingly enough, radical, devout Muslims who defended the Christians, and other henchmen from the Pasha's party who destroyed them, tens of thousands.
Wow.
And the Masapki brothers were 3 of them who were martyred in the Franciscan church right in Damascus, and that was in 1860. And they were Maronites, very devout Maronites.
So they've been beatified.
They've been beatified, right?
And their cause is up for, making them canonized.
It's beautiful because we always picture saints or people who are canonized for the religious life,
Right.
a monastic life. These were lay people. And so in a sense, of the patrons of our apostolate of Maronites, we have this national organization that unites the laity together. And so the Masapki brothers are the patron of this organization because it's made up of the laity, especially.
Yeah, that's important.
And also, Father Mitch, it's also interesting because their bones were mingled with the bones of the Franciscan friars. And so as one of the Synod fathers mentioned as he talked about them, he said it's a beautiful mix of East and West and of clergy and laity and the beauty of the church in its witness to Christ.
And these martyrs of the 1860 are one group of more recent saints. But one of the things that's been wonderful to be as being part of the Maronite Rite, there are other Maronite saints, many of whom are pretty modern. The most famous is St. Charbel, but who else?
St. Charbel, St. Rufka.
Who was a nun.
Who was a nun. Rufka was a nun. Charbel was a hermit. The St. Hardini, another hermit. In fact, he was the teacher of Father Charbel. And what else we have?
And then recently we have...
and just to pause on that, to think, a theologian being canonized, this is a good thing.
Very rare.
It's a good thing.
Very rare.
And also we have a founder of a religious community in Lebanon who serves the poor and the disenfranchised, Jacques Haddad. And then recently this past month, Estefan Nami, who was a brother who worked in the fields, but with his great devotion to the earth and to God, the creator of the earth, and his love for the brothers really pushed him up there in the ranks of sanctity.
Yeah.
And it's in these times to have these different saints in the Eastern Church are not always so well known in the West, but it's important to see that someone like Blessed Estefan would be very important for those who are interested in ecology and the land.
Right.
That sense of that not just being a political agenda, but a religious agenda as well is important.
That's right.
Now, one of the other things too about the Maronite Church is that it's not only something that has a number of these saints, and it continues to have saints. Not all the saints are from 1,500 years ago, 1,600 years ago, but you have the continued growth and development. And one of the means of this growth is what you mentioned, Bishop Gregory, that you bishops, both of you will be at a synod of bishops.
Right.
First of all, what is a synod? A lot of folks don't know what a synod is. What is that?
The synod is a gathering of a group of bishops, usually called for by the Holy Father, for a particular cause or a particular reason for the church as a whole. In this case, there are 2 types of synod. We have in our own particular Maronite church the synod of bishops and the patriarch together. This sort of governs our Maronite church. But the synod that we're recently spoke to you about is a synod called for by the Holy Father, Pope. It's a synod for the Middle East, Christians of the Middle East. And they asked all Eastern bishops, whether they be in the Middle East or in the States, to come and to be part of the synod. Begins on October 10th and goes till October 24th, I believe.
Where will it be held?
In Rome.
In Rome.
Yeah.
See, and that would include then not only Maronites, but the Melkites, who are Byzantine.
Yeah, from the Greek part of Antioch.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And then you've also got the Armenians and the Coptics.
All right.
I mean, and the Syriac Catholics.
The Syriac Catholics, the Chaldean Catholics.
Yes.
From northern Iraq, who had been suffering horrible persecutions. So these different communities. Will any of the others be there?
And then different bishops from all over every bishop conference in the world wherever they are from the Latin Church, will appoint a couple.
Okay. Well, that's marvelous. Marvelous.
Sure.
It is. Synod gets the word from the Greeks, synergy, to bring the synergy of bishops who meet one another, and experts and observers who come meet each other, encounter one another, and see what two things they can do: improve their witness to Christ, and improve their deepen their communion with one another.
Are there any particular difficulties or problems that the bishops need to address in the Eastern churches?
Especially, I think this time they're concerned about the Christianity in the Middle East. It seems in the place where Christ was born, where Christ lived, the Christians are diminishing. They're leaving those lands hundreds at a time. Take, for example, even Bethlehem, which you're familiar with.
Yes.
Probably at one time it was maybe 95%
Yes.
Christian. Now, if there's 3% maybe Christian left.
In Bethlehem, a little bit more, but in the whole country,
Right.
not even 2%.
Yeah. So it's a problem for the church. The church wants to understand how can we maybe keep the Christ alive in the Middle East, letting non-Christians understand that Christ is for everyone, and that they have no reason to be afraid of the Christian. Christians are like anyone else, like they are, except, of course, we preach Christ and Christ alive today as what he was 2,000 years ago.
And one of the things that is part of the problem for the majority of Christians, say in the United States, is that they think of the Middle East as a conflict between Muslims and Jews, or Muslims and the West, or something. Right. And the Middle East is far more diverse. It's right. Much more rich than such a conflict, and that there are Christians who are already there.
The Christians were there before the Muslims.
Yep.
And the Christians are an integral part of every Middle Eastern nation. And the Christians care for the schools, the universities, the nursing homes, the drug rehabilitation centers, the AIDS hospices, the hospitals, in which all of them are open to everybody. They're really the Christians of the Middle East, not just because we're part of them. They're the salt of the earth, as Jesus spoke about.
Yeah.
And it's been that way for hundreds of years, since the beginning. I mean, the Christians were the ones who were always at the service of the people as a whole, and of course, regardless of who may come to the door, they're welcome. I mean, there was never restriction. Oh, you have to be a Christian to be served at this hospital, or you have to be a Christian child to take you in. No, they're open to all.
Yeah. One of the things that few people understand in the West is that while they know the Muslims brought the idea of the university to the West, what they don't realize is that it was the Syriac-speaking Christians who came up with the idea of the university that the Muslims learned from the Christians.
Not just the universities, Father Mitch, but the hospitals.
Yep.
The hospitals that came to Europe, the idea came from the Syriac Christians.
Exactly. They were the ones who preserved the writings of the Greek doctors, philosophers, astronomers, mathematicians, translated them to Arabic, and then from there until they went into Latin.
That's right.
This is an important heritage for the world to understand about its very roots of the West, coming from the Syriac-speaking Christians, such as the Maronites, and the Syriacs and the Chaldeans.
See, what happens many times in our educational system, they lump the entire Middle East together. They never explain to the students that this East has had what was a basic for the Christian, but also from the beginning, every kind of culture passed through the East. And so it's very difficult when you bunch them all together and say, okay, that's the East, it's non-Christian, and the West is Christian. And those terms are not right. They should have never been used.
Yep. No, this is a very important element. And, you know, there's, besides the Synod, you know, right now, you two are with the priests of both eparchies,
right,
and the laity of both eparchies, lay leadership, of a wide variety of types, meeting for a NAM convention, the National Apostolate of Maronites, meeting here in Birmingham because, thanks be to God, our parish here, St. Elias, where I'm very privileged to help out when I'm in town,
Right.
with Core Bishop Richard Saad, that we're celebrating our 100th anniversary.
Of St. Elias, right?
This is something that is wonderful because it gets at another point. The Maronites are not just here 5 years ago or 20 years ago. This is deeply rooted in the church in America. I'd like you to talk a little bit about what is the role of the Maronite Church in America and your role with your churches.
Mm-hmm.
I think, well, there's many ways of understanding our role, I suppose. First of all, we're a church. We're a church of Christ. Like any other Christian, we have the duty to go forth, teach all nations, be witnessing to Christ, regardless of whether what our ethnic background was. So we're in that sense, we're Catholic. We have the same duties as any baptized Catholic Christian. Also, for people to understand the church itself, that they must understand the church is not just one way of worshiping our Savior, our Lord. The church is made up of many different cultures, many different traditions that come together as the one holy Catholic Church. And by by understanding the church better, then they're able to understand the different people in the churches.
As a matter of fact, the liturgy in the Maronite Rite is distinctive from what we would have as either the Byzantine or the Latin. We had, not too long ago, a visit by Monsignor Charbel, who celebrated liturgy here and back in the penitential season. And he was able to celebrate the Corbono here. What does Corbono mean? What does that mean?
Corbono is a Syriac word which means offering. We don't have the right word for what we do, the divine liturgy. In the Latin church they used Mass. In the Greek church or the Byzantine church they used divine liturgy. We really don't have a word except for corbono or offering or service of the mysteries. So the word corbono really speaks very beautifully about it's an offering, it's a communion, and it's a
divine sacrifice.
It's a sacrifice, and it's a commemoration of the Last Supper. That mystery of the Mass it's hard to contain it in any one word, but we use corbono because it's our word.
And also, really, if one understands the Maronite liturgy, if one studies our Maronite liturgy, it's like a catechism.
Yes.
For many years, we didn't need a catechism in the East, especially those who understood the Arabic or the Syriac. Liturgy itself teaches the whole life of Christ, from its prayers, from its hymns, from its the poetry that's in there. Some of the poetry, of course, goes back to St. Ephrem. And so it's really a handbook of theology, of whatever, for the people to understand. I think people who first came, many did not know how to read or write English or anything, but even Arabic or Syriac. But they knew their faith because of that liturgy. They knew the prayers of the liturgy. They knew the meaning of the liturgy, the saints' day of the liturgy. Even the seasons of the year would be tied to the feast of the Assumption, or takes place the month of the Assumption, or this takes place the month of the birth, and things like that. So everything was related to the church ritual itself. And I think that's why we have some of that richness that is shown in our church, in our liturgy. Often we say, because our people came beginning in, say, 1850, 1860. They're very, very poor. Very few had any.
Would that be partly because of that fight from the Pasha, that a lot of them were coming over here to America?
Persecution, starvation, the different wars. But what they had, they were armed with their faith, the richness of their faith. That is why we have churches today. They were determined to keep their faith and eventually bring their own priests or their own traditions back to the communities in which they lived. When they first came, there was no Maronite church, of course. They would go to the local Latin parish. But as soon as they formed a community, either a priest came with them or they sent for a priest. They wanted to retain that early Christian heritage that was theirs from the time of their birth.
And that's one of the important things about the Eastern churches. We don't just say that they're rites. I mean, these are called churches in official Catholic documents. They go back to the apostles. Apostles evangelized Lebanon even way before St. Maron. And the sense of these churches maintaining an identity is important for the Catholic Church. We can't afford to lose that, and to have that back and forth play off of each other.
Father Mitch, in the old days, they used to refer to the Eastern churches as Eastern rites.
Right.
It was appropriate because the idea was there's one church and different rites within that church, which is a good concept. But the new Code of Canon Law came out in 1990 for the Eastern churches, called us churches, which
in a full sense,
which is very beautiful. These are churches in communion with one another, and the Holy Father is the principle of unity and the supreme pastor of all of the churches, which is a beautiful concept because this gives the Eastern Orthodox a little glimpse at what union with Peter would look like. We are fully ourselves, but we are in communion with every other Catholic church and under the jurisdictions of Peter.
Now, what if a Roman Catholic comes to the Maronite parish? Are they allowed to receive any of the sacraments there?
It's their church. This church is open to all. It's not an ethnic church. It's not a Lebanese church.
It's church.
Open to all.
Any Roman Rite Catholic can
fulfill their
receive.
obligation, yes.
And they go to Sunday
Not
Mass.
only can they, but they do.
Yeah, exactly.
And they are.
Exactly.
There are many times we've suffered because there are situations where people were told, if you go to the Maronite church, you don't receive the sacrament, or if you go to the Maronite church, it's not valid, or if you go,
and if you go to any of the Eastern
churches, which was not fair at all.
Well, not only not fair, I would be much stronger than that.
Well, I'm trying to be nice with you.
I know, but I'm Roman Rite, by birth, and I can say it was flat out wrong.
It's still wrong.
Of course, it's wrong that we are fully Catholic.
And I would say if you're Catholic and you don't go to an Eastern church, at least to experience or be in solidarity with them, you commit a sin against the church.
Yeah.
You must know the beauty of the Catholic Church fully in order to appreciate, as Bishop Zayek, the founding bishop of the United States, said, Jesus Christ, the church is beautiful, but how much more beautiful is the founder of the church, Jesus Christ. So if you want to get to know Christ, get to know the beauty of His church.
And I've had, again, great privilege, not only coming to the Maronite Church, I've had wonderful contacts with the Chaldean Rite, not as often because I don't live near one of their communities. The Armenian community has a powerful, beautiful liturgy. And the sense of the suffering they went through, in the early part of this, during World War I, horrendous massacres. That's in their liturgy, and we need to know all of these different communities in the East and the West. I just want to make mention, because we have to go to a break.
Okay.
But I want to mention that this is the 47th Annual Maronite Convention. It's being held here from July 7th to the 11th, 2010, here in Birmingham, Alabama. And if any of you are still interested in coming, can the Roman Rite people come?
Sure.
And thought I'd just ask. That you can go to www.naminbham. So it's NAMNBHam.com, and that'll give you information about what's going on with the Maronite Convention and also the liturgies that they're going to be celebrating at the convention. Well, let's take a break. We're going to come back in a couple of minutes. We want to get questions from you as well as from our studio audience, so please stay with us. Thank you. Now, first of all, I got to ask, how do you like that new open, huh? I really like that. They worked hard to make a brand new open for EWTN Live. This is the first time that we got a chance to see it. So I hope that you all enjoy it. And as you can tell, we have a huge group here today. The house is full. Nothing like bringing a few Lebanese bishops over here. We'll get things going. But if you would like to join us and be in our live audiences, we'd love to have you. You can contact our pilgrimage department by calling them at 205-271-2966. That's 205-271-2966. Or go to our website, www.ewtn.com, to give you information about where you can stay, scheduling of masses and programs and tours of the network, as well as of going up to Hansville to the shrine. So love to have you all come. Like we enjoy having this group here. Also, want to make we may not get a chance to say it at the end of the show. I will be leaving tomorrow for Australia. I'll be working there with the Maronite bishop and the Eparchy of Australia and some of the other Eastern Rites. If some of you who are watching in Australia can have a chance to look up where I'll be, I'm planning on being in Canberra, Melbourne, Sydney, Brisbane, and a couple other places. So it'd be great to have you all to get a chance to meet you and introduce you more to EWTN. Are you all ready for some questions?
We're all ready for some questions.
All right, let's start off with a call. We have Margaret on the line. Hello, Margaret.
Slava Isusu Christu.
Thank you. Evcharisto. What's your question?
For their graces. First, is the liturgy still in Aramaic, Arabic, and English? And second, when Eastern Catholics marry Roman Catholics, is it still the tradition to have the marriage celebrated in the Church of the Groom? I was told that the couple can choose their own particular church to get married in, and I'm not certain if that is according to the Code of Eastern Canons.
Okay, so let's take the first question. What language is the Corbono celebrated in this country?
In this country, it's celebrated in English for the most part. The original language was not Arabic, was Syriac, Aramaic. So we keep many of the parts in the Syriac, Aramaic.
For instance, the consecration.
It's in the original language.
And the calling down of the Holy Spirit, the
original language.
And the Tris Hagion, Holy God, Holy Mighty One, Holy Immortal One.
Yes. Kadishat Eloho. Right. The children, the young people, love to sing that prayer.
Oh, it's a powerful hymn.
It's a powerful hymn. They have a difficulty in this country, though. There are many people, newer immigrants from Lebanon, who only speak Arabic, or claim they only speak Arabic. Mm-hmm. So therefore, they want the liturgy in Arabic. It's not nostalgic. But the problem is, we want our young people to understand our tradition and our custom. If we camouflage, I'm using that word like our language, our liturgy, in a language that the majority of the young people don't understand, we might lock our churches up tomorrow. That's the way I personally feel. I love Arabic. I have no thing against the Arabic Mass. Some of the hymns and the way they're chanted, it's beautiful. But the problem is, we have a church of the future, I call it. And we have these churches that were put together and built by people, sacrificed very much. We want them to be alive 50 years from now, 100 years from now, and forever. But if we hide the liturgy in a language that the majority of people don't understand, forget it.
Also,
it's a problem.
I've traveled around the eparchy a lot, both eparchies a lot. And when I am in a place where there's a Maronite parish, I go. And I've noticed that in some of the parishes, there is a majority of very recent immigrants, right, and most of it is in Arabic. Or, if it's large enough, to have two masses, to have one mostly in English, one mostly in Arabic, and of course Aramaic. Right. But other places, the English dominates because, like in San Antonio, hardly anybody speaks Arabic. That's there. Right. So it varies, too, from one place to another as the needs pastorally. There's a certain flexibility.
Yeah. It's a pastoral problem. A pastor should use his good judgment. He has to serve all those people, whether they're Arabic-speaking or American-born, English-speaking. So he has to use the best of his ability to see how can he relate to those who speak only the Arabic and those who speak English. But and it's a problem. Some people do. Some of our parishes, we have the first, say, 9 o'clock Mass in English, the 11 o'clock Mass in Arabic. The problem with that is we have a community coming to a church, don't know each other. They don't understand each other. They don't see each other. So if you have a general meeting someplace, a general banquet, who are you? Who are you? Where do you come to our church? Hey, it's my church as much as your church.
But then the other hand, the good side of that is you have more banquets so they can get to know each other.
That's right, of course.
I like that. And then the second part of her question about marriage. If somebody from the Eastern Rite and any of the Eastern Rites, including Maronites, and Western Rite, or any of the rites intermarry, what are some of the stages that have to go on? What are the norms?
Well, first we must understand how we belong to the church. We all belong to the church. We're inserted in the church through our father's heritage. That's not because they prefer the man over the woman, but in order to kind of track us and give us a sense of belonging. I'm not just Catholic. I'm a Latin Catholic, a Maronite Catholic, a Chaldean or a Coptic Catholic. And so that heritage comes through the father. And so in order to raise a family within a particular church, we always say that follow the rite of the father. That's why
and that the children will automatically be born in the rite of the father.
Correct. Now, there is freedom. You can be part of any Catholic church.
Right.
But in order for us to not to all blend in, we track ourselves through the heritage, the spiritual heritage of our fathers.
Okay.
But the code also allows now, the recent code, the new Eastern code, that the marriage be celebrated in either tradition.
Yes.
Right.
If you're marrying a Latin lady, for example, prefers the ceremony in her church, it's permitted.
Do they need to get permission or make contact with the bishops of each of the rites so that everybody knows that who's getting married?
Usually you have to be in contact with the pastor.
Okay.
And that takes care of it.
Okay. Good. That's one thing to know. Let's, you mentioned that you choose pastors. I've met so many of the pastors giving retreats, and you've chosen wise pastors, both of you. I've been very impressed with the priests of both eparchies. And here's one of them. Father Nabil Moanes from San Diego. What is your question?
Before I ask the question, I would like to remind you, Father Mitch, that you are in our schedule in August for the conference of Mary, Mother of Life.
Yep.
Please put it on your calendar. Don't forget to come from Australia to San Diego.
Okay.
And my question for our bishops, the Maronite Church was in the Middle East as a big church for the unity between the communities and between bringing also to the unity with Rome and with our Catholic Church, many communities in the Middle East. My question now, how the Maronite Church in the United States or in the whole world, how you can see it's playing like a bridge between civilizations.
Really, in the United States, there are many people from many different backgrounds who attend our churches or to whom we preach the gospel. So these people are free to join the Maronite Church if they so choose. If they choose baptism in the Maronite Church, they've never been baptized, they become fully a Maronite. It's like any Catholic church. But in other words, the Maronite Church is not an ethnic church. Right. It's a Catholic church.
Right.
And of course, the majority of our people are Lebanese or were Lebanese. They're very connected with the Lebanese culture. But at the same time, we're open, and we're a church to follow what Christ said, teach all nations.
And not only that, Father Mitch, but in our cities where our parishes are, you cannot also build a Melkite church, a Coptic church, an Armenian church, Syriac Catholic church. If you can, that's wonderful. But when you cannot, the Maronite Church here in this country is a shelter.
Everybody's welcome.
Especially for Middle Eastern Christians, but not just Middle Eastern Christians, but all Christians. We have in our parishes African American.
Africans.
Yes, we have Polish, we have German, we have Irish.
The parish Rite started off in Dallas, Texas, just north of Dallas. Had a very large contingent of Nigerians who felt so much at home there, and still do, as well as African Americans and Oriental Americans. It's really varied.
I'm smiling because for many years, a few years ago, my choir in St. Louis, the choir director, the choir girl lady, the soloist was German Irish, no Lebanese connection. She married a man who was Chinese. So her children became Maronite because that's where they belonged. But more than that, I had a director who was Jewish. And he fit very well with the community. And unfortunately, it was a car accident and he passed away. But he was only half a step away from being a Maronite. So, unbelievable.
Now, but one of the things, too, I think part of Father Nabil's question is that in Lebanon, there is itself, and not only Lebanon, but throughout the Middle East, there are these different communities. Lebanon has not only the Maronites, a big Armenian community, because the Maronites and other Christians welcomed them from the slaughter that was perpetrated against them in the early 1900s. And then you have Melkites. And you have the various Eastern Orthodox communities and the Syriac Catholics and Chaldeans. All these, and Copts have come from Egypt when they've experienced difficulties there. And the Maronites have been a bridge for these communities to help out.
The Maronites have always had missionaries that went to these different countries, these different places. It's been their tradition to bring people together. They're like a bridge between, for example, maybe non-Catholic Eastern churches and the Catholic ones, to show that, hey, you can be one church with us without giving up the majority of your traditions. It's amazing.
Yeah. And I've also been impressed with the way the Maronites in Lebanon also try to work with the non-Christian communities, such as the Shia Muslims, the Sunni Muslims, and also the Druzi, and the Alawi. All these different communities get along better with the Maronites than they do with each other.
That's true.
It's easier for a Sunni to talk to a Maronite than to a Shia, and a Shia to talk to a Maronite than to a Sunni. So this has been an important role too. So we have another caller. We have George on the line. Hello, George.
Hello, Father.
Hi, where are you from?
I'm from Ohio.
Great, and what's your question?
I love your show and I love your guests.
Thank you. Thank you.
You've already addressed the question that I had regarding marriage. A couple, in which church will they be married, the Latin or the Maronite Rite? But I think the other question, since you've covered some of that, I have another one. That's the readings during the week and on Sundays at Mass. Does the Maronite Church follow the same readings as the Latin Church and the Gospel for that particular day?
Great question. Thank you. Thank you, George.
No, we have our own lectionary, we have our own liturgy, we have our own seasons of the year, similar but not the same. And if someone's interested, they could go. We have daily readings, Maronite podcast, on vineyardofthelord.com, and also our website, stmaron.org or usmaronite.org. You could see the liturgical life right before your eyes.
Yeah, our parish too, St. Elias, on their website has the daily readings, and there's in the Roman Rite we have a 2-year cycle for the daily readings and a 3-year cycle for the Sunday readings. What kind of cycle of readings do you have in the Maronite liturgy?
We don't have a regular cycle.
1 year. 1 year.
1 year cycle.
Yes.
But we have so many opportunities to use feast days and a special liturgy for different occasions that people don't really hear the same thing so often. It's just it's a way of celebrating the feast days, even on the Sunday and Sunday liturgy.
We have another question from one of the very wise pastors among many that you have in the eparchy. Father, Shadow, what's your question tonight?
Thank you to their excellencies. Record shows that in the United States there are hundreds of thousands of Maronites, Eastern Rites of the different traditions that are spread all over the United States. Some close to Maronite churches and some are not. And my probably putting the bishops on the spot since the whole world is watching them. Now, what do they say to their peers, to their American bishops in the United States about Maronites who are attached and rooted now in the Roman Rite churches? And again, what's their message to the Maronites who are attending other traditions? Either they have disconnected themselves totally from the Maronite church or from the Catholic church, so to say.
Maybe 20 or 30 years ago, Father Sharbo, Mansour, the Latin bishops did not really understand the Eastern churches. They considered them to be ethnic churches. Many bishops now, even where there are not churches, have shown an interest in us, in the Maronite Church, and are very open when they understand there are Maronites in their parish, in their locality. For example, I was recently in Tulsa, Oklahoma. It was this was 2 or 3 years ago. It was the first time I heard a Latin Rite, Roman Rite bishop stand up in his pulpit and tell his people, we have a new Maronite church in Tulsa. I want every one of my people to go there and attend the liturgy there and to understand a little more the universality of the church.
Yeah.
I mean, that never used to happen years ago.
Right.
We're in another parish where there were no priests at all, no Maronite church, and the bishop said, this church is due to the Maronite faithful who came, who sacrificed. They were the only Christians that really helped us build the church. So he said, Bishop, this is really your church, but you can't have it. I know that. So it's a problem. It's a problem because where there's no church, we attend the Maronite church. I mean the Latin church. But in all honesty, these children, no matter where they're baptized, they retain their Maronite church, their Maronite Rite. Mm-hmm. And so if the diocese is open, if the bishop understands, then there's always some kind of a way where they mention they make the people aware that we know you're Maronite, we know you're Eastern, but you're welcome in our churches, but we hope that you can have your parish someday or you can have this. Years ago, many bishops were against. And I'm not talking about against them. It's only because they did not understand the Eastern churches, and that's the way it was.
Yeah. And it's, every so often, there's some people who get mad at their priest and they go to the different rite because they're mad at the priest. So cut it out.
That's human nature.
Stop getting mad at the priest and just go to church on Sunday, no matter what rite you are. Mm-hmm. We have another caller. Ron, you there?
Yes, Father, I watch your show and enjoy it all the time.
Thank you. And what's your question?
I'm wondering if you could, with your guests, explain a little bit about the relationship of the patriarchs in the Maronite Church to the Pope in the Latin Rite Church. I'll hang up and listen for your answer.
Thank you very much, Ron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, go. Very good question. Recently, when Pope John Paul II died, there were 4 cardinals at the funeral mass. One of them was the Maronite Patriarch. When Pope Benedict...
Who is?
Nostrella Peter Sfire, our Maronite Patriarch. When Pope Benedict assumed responsibilities for the See of Peter, there were 4 cardinals at the altar. One was the Maronite Patriarch. Why was that? I think that both John Paul and Benedict wanted to show the diversity and unity. The Maronite Patriarch is a principle of unity, not just for the Maronite Church, but he is the head of the Patriarchs and Bishops' Synod in the Middle East and in Lebanon. So he fulfills this role of a principle of unity for the Christians, for the Catholics of the Middle East.
As a matter of fact, one of his titles, I interviewed him a few years ago when he came to Chicago, and one of his titles is Patriarch of Antioch and all the East.
Right.
Yeah.
That's part of it.
Full communion with the Holy Father.
Yep.
And one of the ways that, in many ways, one of the ways they've always shown that. In the coat of arms of the Maronite Patriarch, there's always been the papal cross, the 3-bar cross that we sometimes use now. We call it the Maronite Cross. It shows that the Holy Father was always part of our tradition. At the same time, we have our own church with its own hierarchy, its own rules and regulations and feasts and fasts, etc.
So this is a very important element because, the Patriarch, again, I've met him a few times, and he's a marvelous man. He's 90?
90 years old.
90 years old, very vigorous, walks a lot, great shape, eats very carefully and frugally, and maintains his spiritual life as well as his sense of leadership of the church. And it's just been a marvelous thing to get a chance to meet him.
He's amazing.
Father Mitch, he lives as a monk.
Yeah.
He lives as St. Maron lived.
Yeah. That's been a great blessing. Mm-hmm. Speaking of monks, or something like it, Sister is in the audience. Sister, give your name, please.
Sister Marla Marie.
And what do you do?
Well, under Bishop Gregory, I began a couple years ago a new foundation of Maronite nuns here in the United States, a community particular to the United States to serve our people here in our parishes.
Now, one of the things about this that I'm glad that you are in the audience tonight, because this also shows part of the vitality that new religious orders are starting, but also you have older religious orders here. The Maronite missionaries are a number of the priests. Father Abdullah is the superior of these missionaries from Lebanon, and that's one religious order here. You have some hermits.
We have a group of monks, Maronite monks in Petersham. We have a group of sisters, the Antonine Sisters in North Jackson, Ohio.
Right.
And now we have Sister Marla.
And what's the name of your community, sister?
Maronite Servants of Christ the Light.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. So this is a brand new order. What's going to be your work?
Our charism is to be the spiritual mother in the parish, working alongside our priests to, in the spirit of our Blessed Mother, to radiate Christ's light through our pastoral ministry, serving wherever the need is in the parish. And those are diverse, as the priests know, but bringing that feminine touch to our community.
Much needed. The role of the nuns is diminished quite a bit with the diminishing numbers in this country. So to have a new community starting is a real blessing. Mm-hmm. So thank you for being here, sister. Also, I can't omit that there are also 3 sisters in our audience who are Roman Rite. One of them is the superior, and 2 of the other sisters of the convent Mother Angelica, first joined many moons ago. I won't say how many, but sisters weren't there at the time. But it's great to have you sisters here because of the importance of Mother Angelica and the Poor Clares of Perpetual Adoration. So thank you very much for being here, Mother Thomas and sisters. It's great to have you here. Time is just about run out. We've just got about a minute left. Any last thing you want to say in that last final minute?
We truly enjoy being with you this evening.
Great.
Number 1.
Great to have you all here.
Number 2, we remind all of us that the church is one, though it's for all cultures, all traditions, and that we become better Catholics by understanding the different roles of the different communities in the church.
Mm-hmm. Any last word?
And Father Mitch, maybe I'll leave the last word to Bishop Robert. We have a relic of the Masapki brothers here.
These are those laymen who were martyred in 1860. And Sayyidina, if you would bless us with that relic.
Sure. I'd be happy to. May I stand?
No,
okay.
You can't.
I can't stand.
No, because your microphone
Television.
will go off.
In the name of the Most Holy Trinity, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, we pray that the Masapki brothers will bless us, our communities, our church. Remember the poor and the needy. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Sayyidina. And thank you both. It's great to have you and all the priests here. It's been a delight. And want to also remind all of you viewers that we can have this program and all the other programs on Eastern churches, the Western Church, various religious orders, and lay apostolates, and all these great things, because this network is brought to you by you. So please, keep us in between your gas bill and electric bill. We're still a little bit behind, but you've brought us closer and closer. So you keep helping us out, and we appreciate all your support. Thank you.
Thank you.